Hi. Today we're going to talk about what happens when we convince, impress, shape, impose, judge our sort of subtle belief systems, or maybe not so subtle, onto another person. My name is Denise Dryden. I'm out here on Bainbridge Island. I do these weekly talks. My approach is going to be as a coach. You know, one of my favorite things about coaching is coaching relationships, and my particular passion is the relationship in parenting. What happens to you when you become a parent and when you're co-parenting, and all of those dynamics. So today I want to go into a subject that's big. It's really big. I've touched on this before. January 14th, 2018, right after the second week after the new year, I brought up subjugation. So if you want to go back and look at that one as well, you can. And this one's kind of interesting. It's a huge word. It is a huge word. And yet it's like key to understand how deep we are being asked to go with this shift and this change in how we approach our lives ourselves, how we approach life with our children, how we lead. So I'm going to start with the definition, again, as always, of subjugation, which is the action of bringing someone or something under domination or control, right? To conquer or master, to make submissive, subservient, to gain obedience, to break the will of, and then it gets really big, to enslave, to defeat, to rule them. So subjugation has been something that's huge in our culture and in our Western culture, in our global culture for thousands and thousands of years. And it makes sense. It's a huge energy, and it kind of makes us uncomfortable when we talk about it, which is, I don't like this topic. I don't believe that that's me. And I want to just sort of tap us and say, we all do. We all have a form of how we subjugate others. And so the challenge is to present a video on the topic of subjugation and not subjugate you with my opinions and beliefs. So here we go. Let's try it. So it's about relationships and how we subjugate in relationships. So, you know, we grow up. We have our own set of parents and our extended family, and all of these experiences, whether they're good experiences or bad experiences or not so good, you know, they're our own experiences and our beliefs. And they create how I or how you see the world. They're the lens. Everything is just a context of who you are and how you see the world. So I'll give you an example. I was raised in Southern California by a couple that I was a child in the 1960s, and their view of parenting came from the 1950s. And so their ideas of what worked were based on what they knew when they were growing up, right? Makes sense? And it's a very specific lens. And when you're in California in the 1960s, if you go back and look at your history, it was kind of crazy. It was kind of crazy going on right there. So the question is what lens were you raised with? Do you know? What have you collected and is now a part of you, an absolute part of you? And what is it that you take forward and you share and you impose or you impress or you hold others to this lens that you have? This lens is your perspective of life. It's how you see the world and your role in it. And, as I said, this lens gets shaped not only by our family and our parenting perspectives, but history, news, stories we hear, our fears, our successes, our expectations, our hopes and our dreams, what we accept and what we're ashamed of. These are all the things. Like maybe you got cut from a baseball team. Maybe, you know, someone broke up with you and broke your heart. You know, there's all of these lenses, all of these pieces that put us together, but they're ours. It's our lens. We can't even expect that our partner, our co-parenting partner, has the same lens, because they don't. They lived in a different time, in a different place, with a different set of families. They had their own experiences. So we're unique, and this is how we perceive the world. Now, this perception, as I'm learning, as an HSP, as a highly sensitive person and an empath, perceptions can be all over the place, very quantum from different perspectives. We can take 6 people and line them up and show them an event, and every one of those 6 people will have a different take on what happened. That's natural. That's our perception. So what we're talking about is when we take these perceptions and we impose them on another as what's right. Since we know it, since we're comfortable, this is right, so we impose it on our partners and our children, and we believe that this is how things need to be. So we set guidelines, and we set rules, and we set boundaries, and we have expectations on our children, on each other, about this is what I think relationship is, this is what I think marriage is, this is what I think raising a child is, this is what I think an education is, this is what I think a job is. And so we start laying these things over onto another, and it's kind of like, are you on board with me? Or are we able to have a discussion and co-create together? Or is it a place of conflict that exists between you and another? The hard part when I'm going through this as a parent is that we discipline, we shape, we guide, we invite, we hold another responsible for how you learned to do your life. Let that sink in. You hold another person responsible to understand and to perform or to deliver the same thing you know about your life. We make them adhere to our lens. We make them change their behavior, especially if it's loud, especially if it's, with children. This is where we go. This is my belief of children, and this is what children need to be. Children need to be in school 9 months out of the year, from 9 in the morning until 3. Children need to play sports. Children need to fill in the blank. These are your own lenses. These are the things that you believe. And we make them change their behavior. We make them change their behavior into what is acceptable to us. And we emphasize what's important, whether it's our education or religion, the way we entertain ourselves. If computers are important to us, our house is full of computers. If sports are important to us, our house is full of sports. These are our lenses as parents. Now, with this awareness that these lenses are built and held within our own reality, our own perceptions, how do we lighten up this perspective and allow another to discover theirs, right? How do we let them find out who they are separate from ours and still maintain a degree of normalcy or parameters that work within a family system? How do we do this? How do you learn how to allow and get curious and shift into discovery? Because if we don't, then what we're doing is we're imploding tighter and tighter. And we see this in companies, we see this in family systems, where, we get a little afraid and we start pushing in, and then this circle is going inward, and it just gets tighter and tighter and tenser and tenser. And when that kind of tension shows up, it's not pretty, right? So what we want to do is we want to get curious, and we want to release, and we want to let go, and we want to discover where our wounds are that shape our lenses. As parents, we want to understand how to let go of that need to push in and control, and get curious and go, I wonder why that's here. I wonder what wants to happen. So what we do is we establish our own structure, our own rules, and our own boundaries for us about what we're okay with and what we're not okay with. And we define those. And they take some exploration. Like, structure to me is, I know what time I need to go to bed, and I know what time I need to get up, and I know what foods to eat, and I know what my most productive times are to do my calls. Outside of that, everything else is in full discovery all the time, because that's how I know that I work. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I could impose that on anyone else who's running a coaching practice. Does that make sense? So when we let another, whether it's our child or our partner, navigate in their own world, and we go, oh, we're getting a little close on this side, but everything else in between is fabulous. Then we take that pause and we go, well, wow, I had no idea that this kid loved this kind. And then rather than go, oh, good, so you like building models, I'm going to get you 100 models and you can, over the next 4 years, and you can build. That's not letting them discover it. It's letting, you have to wait till they ask us, hey, can I have a model? I want to build that. Can I have some paints? I'm learning how to paint. I think I really like the guitar. Can I get a guitar? And then find out, am I imposing school and homework on top of this creativity, or am I opening it up? Am I trying to funnel it into lessons, which is how someone else would teach music? Or am I allowing music to be a part of this child's life? Do you see? It's so dicey. It's so tricky. It goes all over the place. You know, I represent highly sensitive kids and empathic kids to their parents. And then we always understand that it kind of comes up the genetic line. It's lineal, right? It's in the lineage. And so when I'm looking at what happens when we impose or we subjugate our belief systems onto someone who's wide open, creative, reactive to the environment, that's the kind of stuff that I work with. And the subjugation ends up being a huge part of it. So last night, randomly, I was in the mood for Netflix. I ran across Hannah Gadsby's Nanette. And if you haven't seen that, by all means do, because she does a wonderful job talking about what is it like to be different in a world that doesn't allow difference. And she said a really important quote: when you soak a child in shame, shame that they don't fit in, shame that they don't adhere to your rules, shame that they can't understand the importance of your religion or your need for grades, or think of shame in any form, shame of being in timeout all the time. When we soak a child in shame, they cannot develop the neurological pathways that carry thoughts such as self-worth. So I want to leave you today with this concept that subjugation, self-worth, empowerment, they're all connected. And all we can do is keep going back to the subject of subjugation and saying, where am I with this? What's working? What's not working? Where am I imposing my belief system, my reality onto another? And what can I do about that? And if you want some help with that, that's what I'm here for. I'm a coach. My name is Denise Dryden, and you can find me on DeniseDrydenCoaching.com. Have a fabulous Sunday. Have a fabulous August, and enjoy. Take care.